Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast in partnership with Vertical Valor magazine. In this two-part series, we go international and speak with Hangar Z co-hosts and international instructors Harald Brink, who is the Chief TFO from the Dutch National Police, and Lieutenant Clay Lacey from Texas DPS. We also talk with Jon Duke, a UK military aviation veteran and contributor to Vertical and Vertical Valor magazines.
And as they're moving to contact, they go inadvertent IMC, and that crew cites the training on helping them get through that. Some interesting notes on that, talking about auditory exclusion and stress. The pilot's Apple Watch showed a heart rate up in the 170s during the initial onset of this. So those guys did a great thing and they survived it. And we've got the ICS audio of it. So I try to share it in my classes. But again, this is a unique thing, I think, to the U.S. This isn't, it seems like when I visit with my European partners, they're generally all running big twins with two pilots up front, and a TFO or two TFOs. I've heard a payload operator and a TFO in the back. So this might be something that's a little more near and dear on the U.S. side.
During this conversation, we're going beyond borders to examine the common ground and critical differences in air support operations between the U.S. and Europe. From suspect behavior that looks the same in Dallas as it does in The Hague, to the training that makes their agency operations effective and efficient. We talk about the intense task saturation of tactical flight officers, a job we argue is the most difficult in all of law enforcement when done correctly. The crucial safety threshold of simulator training, and the tactical importance of flying single-engine helicopters versus the big twins. Check out the article Aerial Pursuit Across Continents by Jon Duke, who joins us to help cross-pollinate these incredible conversations into print. You can find the article in the fall issue of Vertical Valor magazine. Visit verticalmag.com to read more about this collaboration that came to life alongside this recording. Thank you to our sponsors, Centum, Bell, and Metro Aviation.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
Clay, from your perspective, in the conversations you've had with folks who are asking, hey, justify this training to me. Why should my folks sit in your class? To me, it's obvious. And I think to most of us that are listening to the podcast, it's plainly obvious. I mean, we're talking about the effective capturing of bad people. I think that's what we're looking to benefit from. But talk about give some folks some advice on how they could help justify the cost of this training that you're talking about and the importance of doing that.
Well, I think, again, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to see it, it falls back to the final person in charge of that organization and what they want to do. Does something need to rise to a certain threshold before we're actually going to stop it with a solid containment, a dog, and a helicopter? Because we're not going to rise to the occasion. We're going to fall to whatever our level of training is. And if we can't set up a perimeter on a burglary of a motor vehicle, 14-year-old that's running within 2 streets, when we have a cop shot on the ground, we're not all of a sudden going to do great at these manhunts. But leadership has to ask themselves some honest questions about how bad they want to go catch bad guys. As bad as that sounds, I just see it. I think there's leadership in law enforcement that prefers to observe and report, to let's go do this a different way later. Do we know who this suspect is? We can file at large. We'll go get him next week, because it doesn't end up on YouTube. Officers using force. It doesn't end up in language with confrontations. So it's cleaner. And I really think I can't justify to law enforcement organizations this training unless they are truly interested in apprehending fleeing suspects and keeping their community safe right now. Once you have that, the training sort of sells itself. An example here in North Texas is Chief Steve Dye at the Allen Police Department. He has us come in regularly and teach this. It's been codified in their general manual of how to chase bad guys. And that's one agency. Not all the agencies do that. Well, guess what? We have the higher success rates with those agencies than anybody else in the state. So, I think the academies are in a jam. Like Harold said, he said it perfectly. They have a curriculum they have to get through. They don't have enough time in the academy to get through this. So what we've historically relied on in the United States is when you get out on the street, you'll get with a really good, salty, seasoned FTO who will keep you alive and teach you how to catch bad guys. But with certain political events that have occurred in the United States over the last 10 to 15 years, street level proactive law enforcement has changed. It's changed significantly. So these young officers aren't getting these hands-on encounters with manhunts and dog apprehensions versus when I was on the street, we'd work, 5-10 perimeters a week on night shifts. You'd be in 2 or 3 vehicle pursuits a night. That's changed. And with that, we have some 3, 4, 5, 6-year officers that just do not have the experience in managing these. And I give the example, these agencies with a very weak a vehicle pursuit policy where they'll only chase a car that has done something super terrible. You may have a 3, 4, 5-year officer that's never been in a vehicle pursuit. He hasn't had any EVOC training since the academy. Now we down a blue suit and he's behind the suspect vehicle and we ask that individual to go perform at a high level chasing a bad guy. I think that puts them in a really difficult situation, and it's one of the secondary or tertiary effects of policy, one way or the other. So again, I don't mean to be long-winded, but I think it really comes down to the aggressiveness of the agency that air support is supporting.
What you talked about is huge, and you brought it up in your class that you taught at Echo between you and Jack, and a lot of these incidents, whether it's from an aircrew point of view or from ground personnel, you're responding to the vehicle burglar with a 14-year-old suspect, like you mentioned. Why should we spend time taking care of that? Well, what you just outlined is why, because that's the dry run for the next time where it's a more serious crime, and the ultimate crime of a downed officer. How can you not respond to that and then be expected to respond to the major downed officer incident that you're describing? That's where you need to be proficient.
And from an air unit perspective, our motto is call us early and often. We can turn the helicopter off just as quick as we turned it on. So we launch on a foot pursuit. This is for the air crews listening. We are en route. And while en route, the agency says, hey, Air One, you can stand down. This is 2 juveniles wrapping a house with toilet paper. Well, we key up and say, well, what are y'all doing? It's Wednesday night, no calls holding. Why don't we practice? Let's set a perimeter. Let's get the air there. We'll give it 15, 20 minutes. We don't care whether we find them or not, but we're getting those reps. Now, if it's a busy night, there's 40 calls holding. I get it. We can't spend time on that. But as an air crew, we can teach our customer, hey, we have the time. Let's practice a little bit on this one that doesn't matter. I was over 5 dead cops in downtown Dallas 5 minutes after it happened. And I'll tell you, those are chaotic scenes, even for agencies that have solid leadership and command structure. They're difficult. So the more reps we can get, even sand table exercises in a room, the better prepared we are.
Yeah, just the conversation alone, like you talked about the sand table. If that's all you've got, at least you've got something that you can reach back to and use in an incident like that. That chaos is not something you can replicate, but at least you've started the process of working through what it might take to respond to something like that. Harold, I could see the smoke coming out of your ears. You got something to throw in there?
Oh, I completely agree with Clay. And the thing is, what you see over here, like I think the majority of police units all around the world is staffing, getting new people. And normally you had like a field training officer, 10 years on the streets, knows everything. What you see now is people 3 years on the streets and they become a training officer because there is nobody else who can do it. So, and I know those training officers with 3 years experience in the field, they train and they give all the advice best of their ability. But if they also learn the job from somebody only 3 or 4 years on the street, you lose a lot of experience. And that's not what a new one gets. So we have to get in front of that and teach them how to do that. Otherwise, it's like for us to cover all the agencies we do. It's hard to do it, to teach them all and to tell them all. So maybe, what you said about teams might be a start of at least try something new and see if we can reach them. And if it's only half an hour and tell them only one thing about the roving part Clay teaches, or about setting a good perimeter with only 2 patrol cars instead of using 5 or 6, because you can also do it too. But somebody had to teach them, and maybe the time, at least in my country, has come that we had to teach them those things in order to be able to deliver to them what they expect of us.
Yeah, the hard thing is, at least from my agency standpoint, it's an ongoing evolution of training. You get through this year's training, like you said, there's new officers next year, so it's this ongoing thing. It's got to be part of the culture of your air support unit to be committed to the ongoing training revolutions that evolutions that are necessary for the success of these programs that you're talking about. Jon?
Yeah, I'm interested to the extent that seems that the air support units kind of are going to have the best seat in the house when it comes to this sort of thing, particularly with regard to suspect behavior. And that might be an incorrect assumption on my part. But do you think there is, both in Europe and in the US, do you think that the expertise around pursuing fleeing suspects centers around the air support because they see it from such a unique perspective, or does it sit elsewhere, or is it just dependent on, kind of who's most interested in that side of it?
Harald, go ahead.
I think it's not only air support unit. We have a unique view, but think about K9 handlers. I think Jack mentioned them a lot, Clay mentions them a lot. I think that those people have such an amount of experience in hunting people, in finding people, even missing people, suicidal people. So I think if you want to know something about finding people, you have to go to K9 units instead of go to air support units. And we help each other in every way we can. And I think for 75% we speak the same language, because in the end we do the same thing. But I think the experience is with K9 handlers, no matter if it's tracking dog or it's a patrol dog, but I think they have the experience.
Clay?
Yeah, same. I agree. There's, at some point this becomes a zero-sum game, or it becomes a game of reps. And the more reps you get, I'm blessed that I've got thousands and thousands of hours in a camera looking at what bad guys did. And then we share it, whether you take Harold's class, anything from tactical flying or Jack or any of those, we're putting all that stuff together. So, this helicopter out here in Dallas, it's going to work 380 or so car chases a year. There's 10 people in this office. They're all getting a lot of reps on vehicle pursuits, and that carries over to everything else. So I think the repetitions are important. I think wonderful relationships with dog handling teams is also important. And the more training we can give to our customer to set us up for success, the better. And, I encourage air crews, don't forget, you can train on a real scene. It's not uncommon for, say, Bobby's teaching one of our new TFOs. We work a call. The TFO works the call. He works the movement to contact piece. There was nothing immediately dangerous about it, but we could have done it a little different. We will actually pause the event. Bad guy's in custody. We'll tell the two primary, go back to where you were, and then Bobby will get on the radio and move them to that spot. So the TFO live sees a different way, and the ground units go, I like that, right? So you can still get some training done on real missions as long as you get buy-in from your customer. Hey, ground units, can you help us with this? Can you go back to where you were? We're playing a chess game here, and this is a teaching moment, right? So I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I like that. I actually hadn't thought about doing that in the past. I think it's a great way to recreate and look at a different approach. Jon, I think you're getting at is when you think of, at least in the US, when you think of the two units that are going to be involved in in most critical incidents, it's canine operations and air support. And to Clay's point, those two units have the most reps and involvement with these types of incidents and get the most experience. So just on experience alone, those are the folks that I would go to say, hey, how do we do this successfully? So the agencies that train well with canine, air support, patrol, ground operations, those are the ones that are really successful. Harold, I think you had a point you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I think in teaching, Clay mentioned some classes. I think I'm very privileged to know Clay, to know Jack, to know Nick, to know Ryan. So I think also via text, we share a lot of things. And if I have a question, I go to Clay and he immediately answers. Most of the time with a big picture from his barbecue, but doesn't matter. But it's the same with Nick. I think Nick and I are texting like every 2 days or something. And if I have an issue with tactical issues, I go to Clay. I think I had advice many times already. And it's also nice to talk as like instructors, if you can call me an instructor, but to do some sparring about, hey, this is what we found, how can we do it? Or is it the same with you guys? Or especially our Airborne Elusive Foes program. Clay came with some ideas because we also have a program. And we all adopted those. And it's really interesting, but you have to teach each other. The other thing is about the training part also for the TFO. If you consider every flight a training flight, it gives you a lot of training hours. So if the camera isn't moving, like if you have a camera system, and if it isn't moving, I think you're not doing your job properly because those things are your eyes. So you have to move that's your job. If you're in a flight, and I watch the footage on the ground and I see the camera is finding to the 12 o'clock position for like 30 minutes, what are they doing? So I think, if you make every flight a training flight and use ground access, because if the incident is done, or hey, can we borrow you for 5 or 10 minutes, or do some kind of reenactment training? That's what it is, because for the training TFO, it feels like it's a real call. So they handle it, and you see the strike level coming. And the more you do it, the more they get used to it. And if it's a real C, they know how to do it. So we try to do the training as much as we can also on the job. But the thing is, if it's 2-man crew and both are in that aircraft and it's a slow day and we keep it slow, then you keep it slow.
Yeah, you're not taking advantage of those potential training opportunities, like you said. You brought up the calls for service that you have on display at all times. There's nothing that says air support has to work only critical calls. We frequently go to calls that are not critical, and we take those and use those as an opportunity to do what you just talked about, to train. Gives the TFO a chance to use his camera skills, to use his voice to figure out how to efficiently and effectively talk to somebody and tell an officer where a suspect or where somebody is that they need to contact. So I love that. That's a great point, Harold.
And also the calls which are not that important or normally wouldn't be handled by an air support unit are interesting because you're in contact with the officers on the ground and they know,
right.
Hey, so I can talk to those guys up there and maybe, hey, can I give you a call when you landed? Because maybe we can discuss something. And so it's also good in like PR or the relationship between the officers on the ground, getting to know the air support unit people. Because normally it's just an helicopter and it's a voice in the air.
Jon?
Yeah, I think the points that you make there about training during the operational window and also the reps, like just absolutely critical points. And yeah, easy to see the value in getting those reps and because you never know when that one little piece of information that you picked up is going to come back and potentially save someone's life. I do have a question that's kind of a little bit, I don't know whether it's off topic or not. I had a friend who was a pursuit driver for a lot of years with a police force here in the UK. And what you were saying, Harold, about always having the camera moving and always being on the lookout. I'm fairly sure that he either had a really good nose or he had really just done a lot of reps, because he would do stops. At least the way he tells it, I don't know, maybe it's like the big fish, but he frequently would talk about stops where the tiniest little indicator had tipped him off that we're going to pull this person over. Something's not right. Like, if you're flying, do you have a similar sort of sense, or is it quite common to see people, if you're just on patrol through the camera and you just think, yeah, I'm going to call that?
Thank you to our sponsor, Centum. Airborne operators know that every second counts. LifeSeeker is a powerful phone location tool helping search and rescue teams and law enforcement agencies locate missing persons faster, even in the toughest conditions. With hundreds of successful missions every year and proven reliability, LifeSeeker is trusted by public safety agencies worldwide. Want to improve your operations? Learn more at Centum.com.
I think Clay agrees. It's behavior. It's something you see, like people running away and everybody's on the sidewalk and one is cutting the corner. Why is he cutting the corner? If there's a car and they just want to do a normal traffic stop, you can see in the behavior of the car, it's not going to stop. It's going to be in the soup. So I think its experience is interesting in human behavior, and there becomes again suspect tactics.
Yeah,
they do things to get away because most of the time when we get them, they go to jail or they have to pay a lot of money. So they want to get away.
I suppose to that point about reps and experience, all the time you're scanning, even if you're scanning and there's nothing going on, like crime has stopped in the Netherlands for the brief period that you're airborne, you're still getting a baseline, right? You're still collecting a baseline of what normal looks like.
I think that's one of the common things between the US and Europe, or even South America or Asia. It's all the same. It's what we do is looking for behavior. That's what we do, how people behave. And if they behave differently, you will see it.
Yeah.
It's the same, I think, when Clay just walks in Amsterdam, he immediately knows, okay, this is a bad area. I don't go there. Or he can see people like in the subways, he can say, this is not good. So maybe I should move to another cart because I think that's, Jon has the same. I think that's something, even my daughters have it. So it's something that comes with doing what you do. So I think it touches also the thing about what do law enforcement people do and why it's community. This is also one about why it's community, because we all do the same thing. We're in the people business.
Yeah, it's those shared experiences, I think, that unify us, and that culture that we've developed over the course of our career. Really interesting part of that. I think you go to Europe, you go to Australia, you go to South America, people that have spent time in a law enforcement capacity have this unique way of identifying with each other and the things that you do and experience over the course of your career. Clay, I'm curious, any insights from you as it relates to what Jon was talking about?
I agree with Harald. Everything he said is spot on. And then I would just follow up with, when I'm flying as a pilot or a TFO, and we're in between calls, I want to make sure all my equipment's ready to go, my camera's up, I can get to where I need to get, but I'm a cop. I'm looking for the car in the neighborhood with its headlights off and the brake lights checking. I'm looking for guys on foot where they shouldn't be on foot. I always say it's a police car at 2,000 feet. So we're doing the same thing. If Harald gets in this A-Star out here with me in the left seat, I promise you, he would be able to TFO just fine right here in Dallas. And he would also look out at things and go, that's a little goofy, right? Because these guys do a lot of the same stuff. So I encourage people interested in joining air support, get as much experience on the street as you can. Yeah, go arrest your drug deals, go arrest all that stuff. That's great. But if there's a manhunt, you can get someone on the ground, get involved in that. Run with the canine team, help set the perimeter, go to the arrest location and look at what the bad guy did. Where did he hide? What were indicators that he entered this yard? The more you can do on the ground of that, the better you'll be in the air. And the ultimate example, that's Jack Shanley. He was at LAPD in the heyday of street level operations, was an exceptional dog handler. He gets right in the helicopter, and within 3 orbits, he's saying the bad guy's going to be right here. Right. And he's usually right. So I encourage people to get that experience on the street, and it translates over to being in the air.
It's something that I think from a trend perspective is interesting to touch on for a little bit is technology. Real-time crime centers are popping up everywhere in the United States. A lot of agencies are using that in some really cool ways. Air support's starting to adopt the really cool ability to take advantage of that information through the use of information going up and down to the aircraft. So we're used to downlinking. A lot of agencies and aircraft don't have the ability to receive information in a big way. That's changing with Starlink and some other technology. What are you guys seeing, Harold, in Europe as it relates to real time crime centers and the spread of uploading and downloading information for the use of proactive enforcement from an aircrew?
I think you saw our mission suite. Clay also saw it. We have an uplink with all the incidents in the entire country, prioritized with priority 1 to 5. So 1 is most urgent and 5 is. But we can look into those incidents. We can see where they happen. We can see which units are going or are there already. If the location of the suspect or thing changes, it immediately changes also in our screen. So we can all see that's the new location we have to go to if it's like 10 minutes flight. We have also the automatic license plates, number registration on board. We have the possibility to see when they ping cell phones. We can actually see where they ping it. We can see the area of the antennas, so we can also adapt to that. So I think we are pretty in the game with it's 5G and we're looking into Starlink or something, because 5G sometimes it's like in the Netherlands, we don't have an aerial network for 5G. I know in the UK they have. In the Netherlands we don't. So we lose connection around 3,000 feet AGL. The thing is, our entire country is flat. so we don't have an issue with mountains and those kind of things. The highest mountain is like I think 300 feet or something. So it's not really high. I think we have a pretty solid information data stream up and down. So and yeah, it's evolving very quickly. So for the replacement of the equipment, we are looking into even more. But there's a limit, I think, in what you can send. You can send everything up, but there's a limit in the TFOs and the pilot's mind to process all that information, because too much information can also be a burden. Like too much clutter on a TFO screen can also distract him from finding the suspect, because it's too cluttered and you see everything, like the north arrow, the speed, the altitude. It's nice, but it can be too much. So I think we also have to take into account. It's nice, but you also have to put some kind of limit what people can handle to process, to use it effectively when they're up there.
I want to go back to the idea of proactive policing here for a minute. Proactive policing from an air support perspective. And we talked about proactive flights, and Harold, you talked about how you guys adopted proactive flights after your experience at LAPD. I think that is a game changer. Can you talk about kind of the general sense in Europe and what the general thought is of proactive flights supporting patrol versus reactive flights supporting surveillance units or anything else?
So for the surveillance units, it's interesting. We did it a lot because we had fixed wing in the past. We saw them a few years ago, and what you see now, those surveillance teams, they think, oh, they only have helicopters. We don't call them because it's noisy and they can do surveillance. So we're in the process now of convincing that we can do it, and they see it. So they never knew that we can look at handovers like at 8 or 9 kilometers away. But it's perfectly doable with the right equipment. For the thing is, in the night shift, we try to fly on call because of the area we fly. It's very dense populated, and people start complaining about, oh, if we have like a serious call, they're not complaining. But if it just flying around, what they think for 2 hours, we got noise complaints. So during nighttime, you see we try to fly in call, but we have a lot of tasking also during night times for the indoor growth or surveillance or those things. So we fly all nights, but it's basically on call instead of during the day and evening. It's active patrolling. And yeah, of course, we all like the active patrolling because that's where we all applied for, flying and doing the thing we do.
Would you say it's a pretty common theme across Europe as a whole?
No, not at all. No. I know a lot of, like Germany, it's a big country, they have a lot of helicopters. And the majority of units, they fly on call. France also, French Gendarmerie on call. Belgium also on call. AMPAS, I don't know how, I think it's on call, but I'm not pretty sure. And they even charge the units calling for help for police headquarters. So they charge the units asking for air support. But yeah, that's also a way to do it. But the majority is in Europe is on call and not like we do patrol, because especially with twin engine aircraft, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of fuel, especially when you operate like the 139s we have. It's a big fuel burner, so it's an expensive operation.
I think when you look at what we consider a successful aviation program here in the U.S., you're looking at programs who fly proactively. Those units tend to have higher success rates for apprehending suspects. They're involved in a lot of incidents, or they're first on scene. But it changes the dynamics, and that success, I think, allows for those units to generate more funding and get more tools to assist them. And it seems like there's more agencies than not that embrace proactive patrolling from an air support standpoint. From my perspective, Clay, do you see the same thing in your travels and your training?
Well, I actually see just a wide range, from a military surplus OH-58 with a volunteer pilot and 4 deputies that they don't fly unless something happens in their county, to your LAPD 2A stars over the city 24/7. So it's a wide range here in the United States, but I think at the end of the day, agency leadership and certainly aircraft division leadership's goal, in my opinion, should be to put a highly trained professional air crew with the latest technology over the area of interest for as much and as long as possible. And I tell people a lot of times they don't want to hear it. They're like, hey, we're going to go buy a helicopter. And you start looking at money and you go, I would buy a Cessna 182 and put an MX-10 Gen 4 on it and go fly 7 or 8 hours a night versus your twin engine Bell or Airbus, and you're going to be able to fly it 2 or 3 hours a week. So, I think I'm big on define the mission. What do you want to do? And the goal should be, if you're going to do patrol operations, to be over patrol. And patrols out on the streets win 24/7. So the more we can be in a position with a trained crew and the gear to support them, the better. And so, in the United States, we see, just like Harald, response only. We see very proactive units, and it all comes down to leadership and money. Again, the single engine helicopters here versus Europe, it saves us some money. It's not as expensive, and we're able to take that money and put it into either more flight time, more training, or actually targeting the risks that do kill us in this industry, which is loss of control accidents, hoist accidents, where people are hoisting when they haven't gotten a lot of training, or that's the high casualty rate deals, not an engine quitting on the helicopter. So I don't know, it's long-winded, but that's how I see it, mostly stateside.
No, that's great. You get a chance to travel throughout the U.S. and the world, providing the training that you're a part of, and get to have these unique conversations. So your perspective is very unique in that you get a chance to talk to all these folks. So I appreciate you doing that. When you travel the world, like your recent trip to Spain, do you notice similar line of questioning and interest and engagement from the students, or does it seem different based on regional differences, or what do you see there? Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
I see what you see in the United States when you get a bunch of different units in the same room. They can become reluctant to engage one another. So now take it to a whole other level. Now you're in Europe with multiple countries in the same room with different levels of language proficiency and different levels of background. And so it can be difficult for them to share ideas because they don't want to put themselves out there sometimes. And my classes are the best when the students are involved. They teach each other. I'm just kind of the facilitator. The more engagement from the students, the better. But just like a big room in the United States with a lot of different agencies, the same thing can happen in Europe. And the more that's why I try to share a lot of mistakes that we make and a lot of things we do. Out behind me, there's 3 of our brand new TFOs that are learning how to do a P-check on an AS-350 helicopter. They're TFOs, but the pilots are teaching them that. So again, that always learning, always teaching is important. But as an instructor, I think Harald would probably agree, it can be difficult depending on who's in the room and their willingness to share.
And before we go to Jon, Harald, can you follow up on what Clay talked about and give us your insight of what you're seeing?
The last part about giving training, the best conversation you have with people is during breaks, because then they approach you and then they start talking. The thing is, and in Europe, it's also a language thing, because the levels of proficiency are different, and I think they are kind of ashamed to talk to the entire room, to tell them what their experience, and they have great experience, because the best stories you hear in those breaks. And if you ask them, please tell it to the complete class, not going there. So, we learn. I think we as instructors learn a lot during those breaks from those people, and it's interesting to hear them stories. The thing is in Europe it's a language, because we all have to do it in English, and the thing is, my English is crappy, but it can be worse. So
you're a liar there, Harald.
So
your English is great.
So it's very interesting there, but I think it's other country, same problems, same issues. We all have the same issues.
Yeah, Nick talks about how in the training role you guys are like carrier pigeons. You hear all these different things and you take it from one village essentially to the next. Really cool way for you guys to hear what's good and hear what's not, and bring those stories and conversations to each class that you visit. I love that you guys get to be a part of that. Jon, I know you got something to throw in there.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's just something that I'm conscious of time, and I definitely want to kind of ask this question. So Clay and Harald, you both alluded to the fact that aerial policing is fundamentally a human endeavor, right? It's human beings on the ground who need to be bound either for their own safety or for the safety of other people and society. And there's human beings in the aircraft who are doing the looking and doing the coordination, doing the work. And one of the things that I am most interested in general is human performance, right? And I think it was Clay, you mentioned it earlier on, one of the hardest things to do is put somebody in a helicopter where they are going to be under pressure, where the stakes are incredibly high, and where they have a lot of technology at their fingertips, but their workload, the number of decisions that you have to make, I think, as a TFO, it kind of staggers me. And I'm curious from both perspectives, and I know I'm fairly confident that this is going to be a similarity, not a difference, between the US and Europe. But I just wonder if you could say a little bit about the human effort required in the aircraft to manage that workload.
Clay, we'll start with you.
It circles back to that training and selecting the right people who have the aptitude towards doing that job. And that's a moving target as well. But the workload, I always say, me and my partner, we're going to eat the same pie. We've got a pie. Sometimes I'm going to have to eat more of it. Sometimes you're going to have to eat more of it, but we're going to trade that off and we're going to get this done. And so, generally speaking, a poorly trained, a poorly selected TFO will cause workload to shift to the pilot. And what I mean by that is the pilot's going to take on now these TFO roles that are not getting done. And now attention and human performance is taken away from safely operating the aircraft. So this idea of, oh, they're just an observer, we're going to have 15 guys who rotate flying in the helicopter and they get no training, that's not a good plan. The TFOs need a tremendous amount of training. And we also have to understand selection is very important. The ways that agencies pick people for other assignments in the organization, K9, detective work, SWAT, that doesn't always translate over to picking the right person to be an aircrew member. So having a process to select those individuals, front loading that process with money and time, picks a person that's better suited to be successful in that job based on these human performance models. And then finally, leadership investing in people. How is your family? How are you? Are you rested? Are you fatigued? Are your needs met? Right? Are things at home good? Are things here good? Are we getting you the training we can get you? That way, when they walk in, you know, their water bottle, this is their potential for the day. It's always got a lot of water in it. But, you know, if we're going through a divorce, we haven't had training in a while. We've got a terrible first line supervisor. We were in court all day. Now we walk in with this much water. So I encourage the leadership to continue to invest in building your people, not just in the aircraft, but outside of that.
Yeah, that recognition is huge, you know, and it speaks to so many different things. Clint Pulver, who I talk about quite a bit, talks about the culture that drives people to stay where they're at. We talk about recruitment and retention a lot and how retaining folks is much more efficient than bringing new folks in through the front door. Not only is it more efficient from a time perspective, but it's more efficient financially. So creating that environment where people are happy to go to work, where the boss knows Clay's kids, knows when there might be something wrong with Clay because of the way he's talking. That investment in the human capital is essential for a lot of reasons. So love that you brought that up. Harold, curious to hear some insight from you on that.
I think Clay covered it all. That's what it is. Nothing more, nothing less. And the workload, it has to do with how you select the people. And it's not only the people up front, but also in Europe in the back or in the US in the left seat. I know Clay's selection program. He knows mine. Actually, I'm going to email you, Clay, because we're looking into some new things, because the people we're going to hire is a new generation. So maybe we should adapt also, because technology is moving up and up. It's going faster and faster. And so maybe we have to change some things in the selection to get the right people. But they still have to have the basic things. And it's very easy. Don't get nausea in an helicopter, because we had 3 people washing out the last 3 years because they got nausea all the time. So we have to look to that, because if you know you get nausea, it's going to affect your workload, and it's going to affect the TFO's workload. Clay mentioned it, and Nick mentioned it also in his training. The workload shifts to the pilot, because the pilot is also a police officer, and we all have one thing. We want to catch the bad guy, so they get sucked into the incident, but also, there he is, and you have to, if you want a pilot, you still have to fly the aircraft. But the thing is, you're also a police officer, that's where it comes together. So if you don't have a proficient TFO on the left seat or in the back, and the pilot is also an officer, he's going to take over some tasks which are, in the crew concept, not really his tasks, but it's going to do it because we all want to do it to help the people on the ground. And there you go. So it starts with selection. So that's an excellent one, I think Clay's mentioning. So you have to do a very proper selection process in order to hire the pilots and TFOs in a law enforcement aircraft. And it doesn't matter if it's rotary wing or it's fixed wing, even for UAVs now, because I think the guy interpreting the imaging is TFO. So they also should be trained in TFO tactics and suspect tactics and what K9 goes. And if the suspect is somewhere, you have to send a dog upwind instead of downwind. Those things. But now it's in the Netherlands, the majority of UAV operators are just street cops doing a training in operating and operating the system and operating the camera, but not in the tactics we discussed about. So I think, it's an interesting thing, but it all starts with training and selecting, and especially with selecting the right people.
In the U.S., it's interesting because I think what a lot of agencies are doing, your entry into aviation is as a TFO, and then eventually you might make your way to pilot, and that pilot has spent a significant amount of time, in theory, sitting in that TFO seat. So when you're working over an incident as a 2-person crew in the U.S., you've got 2 folks in that aircraft who have a lot of experience operating the sensor equipment, being a TFO, and understand the roles and responsibilities of that. A lot of times when we talk to agencies that don't have a sworn pilot that pilot hasn't spent time in the TFO seat, they have some challenges that the other crews don't. A lot of those agencies have been successful in that pilot adopting and is understanding what that role is and being able to help. But Harold, from your perspective and your experience within your own agency, what are you seeing when it comes to the selection of the pilot, and how is that pilot able to, like Clay said, take some of that pie and help the TFO out when things are really busy in your side?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I think in Europe it's a little bit strange because we don't have a system like the TFO has the opportunity to become a pilot. At least in my unit, we don't do it. I know a lot of it. So you hire a TFO or you can hire as a pilot. That's what you want to do, and that's where you were selected for. The thing is, we have on the 139 a lot of ex-military pilots. So they all flown the Chinook or the Super Pumas. And we have one NH90 guy. But that's different. Those guys are from the military. They're not police officers. But in my opinion, it's not that they can't do the job, because they are driven to do the same, because it's always fun. It sounds strange, but it's fun to chase bad guys and to catch them. And we train a lot, we fly a lot, so they learn on the job. What we also do with all the instructors, we do standardization with all the TFO pilot instructors twice a year, and we change seats. So especially with 139 pilot instructors, they go to the back and do their TFO job with the 5-star, with the airborne user force, with positioning the aircraft, with voice marshalling, those kind of things. I think Jon knows it with bigger aircraft. So we do like sort of cross training, and that's why the TFO also goes with the pilots, no matter which type of aircraft, to the simulator and see where they can help each other. And briefing and debriefing is a big part of it. So, hey, I must a suspect because we look at the footage, because we record everything. Look at the footage. See, this is where your position was off, because now I lost it, and we lost the guy completely because he went under the trees and we lost it. So next time, it's also some trial and error. But I think there's no difference between a military pilot and a police pilot. But it also has to do with interest. So if they're interested in what they do, they pick it up immediately, because it is not rocket science. It's not a way of life, but it's something.
Clay, insight from you?
I think, the one thing that will historically, or that with a lot of regularity will interfere with the TFO's operation and what they're trying to do as it relates to the pilot, deals with aircraft positioning. Having the aircraft in the right position, configured the right way for the TFO to provide tactical insight to keep them safe and catch the bad guy. So as long as the pilot's being trained on angles, altitudes, airspeeds, what's about to happen, I think you can take, a civilian pilot or a military pilot and make them a law enforcement pilot. You have to pick the right one that's willing to say, well, we shot rockets in Fallujah this way. We're chasing bad guys through neighborhoods. We're not shooting rockets in Fallujah. So you have to, I always say it all the time, it's my biggest problem. Ego is the enemy. As long as you get a pilot that can set that aside and learn these positioning situations, then you can be successful. Now, having a TFO that moves to pilot, they've been there, done that. They can look at that screen and know immediately what's fixing to hurt their buddy and fix it, right? So I think, again, it's a way, not the way. I think units can be successful with both, but there is no question that the pilot has got to be invested in the mission and has got to be invested in serving the TFO. That's what the pilot's there to do. Safely put the aircraft in a position for the TFO to do their job the most effectively.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about, the pilot being able to use that TFO, whether it's his head or the screen, seeing where the camera's positioned as an instrument to understand what he needs to fix or she needs to fix to make that TFO successful is critical. I think in the U.S. in particular, one thing that's interesting is the aviation community, the pilot community is a fairly transient community. So you see somebody go fly for one company for a year, then they move to the next thing, and at the end of the day, they're pursuing something of interest. Maybe it's trying to get to twins, or maybe they're trying to fight fire, or maybe they're trying to get a particular geographic place. But it's a transient world. So I think some of my concern with the idea of a civilian pilot, while it can be successful, like we talked about, I feel like they don't have the buy-in to the agency that the sworn folks have sometimes. Because we're pursuing a pension, we're pursuing a service career that may last 30 years. So I think that's where you see some of the differences with folks that may be invested to stay long term versus some of the short term benefits of the civilian, at least in the U.S., population of pilots. Harold, I know you've got something to throw in there.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
Yeah, about civilians, it's interesting. Maybe Jon also read it. UK MPAS is hiring civilians to become TFO now because of staffing issues. So I think that's very interesting to follow. Yeah, Clay, that was my thought too. That's very interesting to see how they're going to do that, how they're going to train them, how they're going to teach them, how they're going to learn them, even the complexity of communication and hear intonation and voices from officers on the ground. Oh, this is going bad because I can hear in his voice. I think it's very interesting for us to see what happens there. And like I said, we have a lot of military pilots and they bring also a lot of experience. Like the guy we have from the Navy, he flew the Lynx and the NH90, and he has a lot of experience in operating above the sea. So since we are the quick reaction air and we have to do the police tactical units and fly them everywhere, also in the North Sea, he brings us a lot of tactics, because the tactics used by the military are the same tactics we use when we fly with 2 or 3 ships to attack a ship, like attack, but do a raid on a ship or on an oil rig or something. So they bring us a lot. So it's not like maybe the police part is something they have to learn, but in my experience, they learn it very quick because it's for them. In the military, it's like training, and then you get a deployment, and then the mission is real. With our mission, it's 24/7, 365 days a year. It's a real mission. When you're entering the building, it's on. When you're leaving home, it's done. And and I think that's the experience those people have. So everything it's like for the mission. So they motivated till here. It's really good. It's really good to see. So I don't think it's an issue that having military pilots as civilians. I think that's a different thing, because in the UK they say it's civilian, but in my opinion, Jon, correct me if I'm wrong, it's all ex-Royal Air Force or Royal Navy pilots, and they get hired by Babcock or something else, and they explore the police helicopter. So actually they have some kind of the same blood as we as sworn law enforcement officers have.
Yeah, it's very common for, in fact, I have a few former colleagues who are flying for MPAS and having a great time doing it. I don't know that they're all ex-military. I'm fairly confident there are some civilian pilots doing it, and I know that there are some civilian TFOs. But you're absolutely right in what you said about the, as long as they all have, all the ones that I know, they all have the same service mentality. It's a point of pride for me personally that one of the civilian TFOs in NPAS came through a scholarship program that I helped stand up in the Navy. So I know that at least one of them has got a good service mindset. So I'm very, I won't name them because they'll be embarrassed. But yeah, it's an interesting step, but I think it all boils down to selecting and training the right way. And I think if you do that, you can have just as much success. But yeah, that's just me. Jon, will you allow me one last question to Clay and Harold? I'm curious to get your perspective on what's the best feeling in the job? Like as a TFO, at what point, it doesn't have to be a specific event, but it might be like what characterizes the best feeling that you get doing that job?
The best thing is when you were able to help the people who needed you, and that can be officers on the ground, but it can also be that missing child or somebody drowning, and you can rescue them. To bring them to a good end. So when you're back at base and it was hard work and it was raining, it was over the North Sea, it was during night time, but the satisfaction you get when you were a small part of the operation in getting those people back home or to their loved ones. I think that's what it is, at least for me.
Yeah, I agree. Exactly what Harold said. And, I always say that this is the only job in law enforcement where we can verbally walk an officer to their death. But the flip side of that is we can also save their lives. And there's nothing more rewarding than saving a life, whether it's pulling somebody out of a burning car or finding a missing child. So I think getting the opportunities on with regularity to take a significant investment by the community. They buy us these aircraft. They pay for us to go serve them. They trust that we're going to make the right decisions, and it's a lot of money. And when we go out there and can do that for them, I think it's the absolute best part of the job. And then getting to do it a lot. That's one of the great things about this is it's not a one time in a career deal. We get to be in those positions often. I think that's the best part of the job, just like Harold said.
Yeah, I feel like as police officers, we've been given a superpower when they give you a helicopter with all the advanced avionics, the camera systems, all the tools that we have to catch bad guys and find good guys. I would always feel so proud at the end of an incident where you knew the successful outcome of a call wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the aircrew that was over that call. It could be something as simple as what Clay talked about earlier, a burglary suspect from a vehicle that fled because the air unit was there right away, was able to contain that person, and had a successful outcome, all the way to the chaotic pursuit that the air unit was able to stay over and maintain eyes on the suspect. And there's so many things that, like you said, Clay, we get to be over all the time that you in the incident, you're like, holy cow, this would not have ended this way had it not been for the aircrew overhead. There's so many unique things that we get to see and do that just makes the job so fun. So I love that, hands down, more than anything else. Clay, I know you got something to add in there.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up. In addition to that, I've been over several officer-involved shootings, and on a couple of them, tremendous auditory exclusion on the ground, right? That's one of the first things that goes away under stress, right? I've had them come back to me and say, the only thing I remember is I could hear you on my shoulder mic talking about what was happening and running the scene, and I knew I was going to be okay. Man, right? That's powerful stuff provided from a ground unit. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's another part of the superpower, Love it. Well, gentlemen, thank you for taking time out of your day to talk with us on this. As I kind of thought, there was way more similarities than differences in what we talked about. And I think at the end of the day, our goal, whether you're in the US, Europe, Australia, anywhere else, is to protect the boys and girls on the ground and to catch the good guys. Catch the bad guys and find the good guys. That's what we're all trying to do. And That behavior that suspects exhibit, like we talked about, is the same regardless of where you're at. So the tactics that we're using, employing, instructing, and teaching are the same because of that. So I think our culture is just so similar, but regardless of where you are. So love that part of the conversation. Before we head out, John, any last questions that you'd like to pose?
No, I don't have any other questions, but I will take the opportunity to say thank you very much to Harold and Clay. I know you're both busy guys, just in the day job, never mind all the additional training and things that you do for the aerial law enforcement community. So thank you for that. Thank you for doing it, because it is a hugely important job and it doesn't always get the recognition that it deserves. And it'd be great to catch up with you. Clay, I don't know if you're coming across to European Rotors. Harold, I think you are, but it'd be great to catch up if you're both there.
Clay, any last thoughts before we head out?
Just to say to you, John, I consider you a friend now. Thank you for what you do. I tell John and Jack, all the time, they're changing the game with these podcasts. They're getting information out to people that never used to get out. They're telling the stories of brave men and women doing wonderful things. And here you are as an author, going to author a piece for a publication that's going to be widely received. And you're taking enough time to sit here with us and listen to us and tell the story. So just thank you to you.
Oh, thank you, Clay. I appreciate that a lot.
Harold?
I'm getting emotional. No, I think Clay nails it. And yeah, John, podcasting, Europe is different. It's more laid back. It's not like it's interesting. John said something about the law enforcement community. It is there in Europe. I think Clay also notices when he's here in trains. It is there, but it's completely different because it has to do with how we think in Europe and how the public thinks about law enforcement. So that's the difference. But yeah, I'm trying to make the Hangar Z podcast a little bit known in Europe, and I think we're doing a pretty good thing because PathCon is now also John is on the website. Everybody's listening. In my unit, people, because of the stickers you put everywhere, John, when you visited us, but people are listening now. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for what you do also for the European community in airport law enforcement. I think it's really great, and I'm honored to be part of this very small part of that community. So thank you, yeah, John, the other John. It's very interesting. So I hope to see you at European Rotors. So maybe we can do it with coffee or a glass of water and talk about things more, because you had some more things and there's so much to talk about. I think we can talk for like 5 or 6 hours about this topic. So Clay, book a ticket, come to Cologne in November, and we'll see you there.
By water, you meant beer, right, Harold?
It's still water, 90% water, John.
No, again, thank you guys for what you do. I think part of the goal of what we're doing on the podcast is unifying the community, and the way that, Harold, you came and learned from the folks at LAPD. Well, we're wanting to do the same from you guys. You guys are doing some unique stuff and have some really advanced ways of finding bad folks, and we need to adopt those same tactics. So thank you for representing the Hangar Z in Europe and for spreading that unifying message, and look forward to seeing you guys at European Rotors. And thanks again. Until next time, we'll catch you later.
We'll see you.
See ya.
Tim.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers. Thank you to our sponsor, Centum. Airborne operators know that every second counts. LifeSeeker is a powerful phone location tool helping search and rescue teams and law enforcement agencies locate missing persons faster, even in the toughest conditions. With hundreds of successful missions every year and proven reliability, LifeSeeker is trusted by public safety agencies worldwide. Want to improve your operations? Learn more at Centum.com.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors. Thank you for joining us for this two-part international series of the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasting in partnership with Vertical Valor magazine. We had the pleasure of talking with Hangar Z co-hosts and international instructors, Harald Brink, Chief TFO from the Dutch National Police, and Lieutenant Clay Lacey from Texas DPS. We also spoke with Jon Duke, a UK military aviation veteran and contributor to Vertical Valor and Vertical magazines. We explored the similarities and critical differences in air support operations between the US and Europe, from recognizing suspect behavior to discussing the intense task saturation faced by TFOs. We also highlighted the importance of simulator training and the tactical advantages of flying both single-engine and twin-engine helicopters. Don't forget to check out Jon Duke's article, Aerial Pursuit Across Continents, which further expands on these incredible conversations. You can find it in the fall issue of Vertical Valor magazine at verticalmag.com. Thank you for being a part of this conversation today, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Hangar Z podcast.